Hello and welcome back to the Pumpkin Copter Cast, the only video game show. So today I am joined by the creator and chief content generator for the Twitter account / website known as Supper Mario Broth.
That's right, hello.
Yep,
I'm very glad to be here.
we're glad to have you. And I'll start out with the standard, who you are and what you do.
Yes, so I am the author of Supper Mario Broth. This website was first just a Tumblr page, suppermariobroth.tumblr.com. It was created in 2012 by a different person than me, and I was very quickly after the website was created, I was invited as a content contributor. But after a while, the original creator got bored, got no longer interested in Mario, and I took over. And as time went on, I dedicated more and more time to the website. And now it is that, well, it is no longer just one site, no longer just SupperMarioBroth.com, but also the Twitter account, a bunch of side blogs, and my Patreon at patreon.com/SupperMarioBroth. And all of these together, I usually have about 10 posts a day that I make, and I spend, about 4 hours a day on average doing this. And what I do is I post obscure Mario content. I usually go through games and pay extremely close attention to details, and I think, well, if this is something that people are likely to not have noticed before, are likely to not know about, then I make a post about it. And that's what I do.
Okay. So, what got you interested in video games? Was there a specific game and or games that made you interested in video games as initially just a hobby and now as a profession?
Well, I wouldn't say that it isn't my profession now. I do have a day job, but I would say this is a part-time job for me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when I was 4 years old, I got my first console, which was an NES, and it had Super Mario Brothers included. And the first time I played Super Mario Brothers, I looked at the screen. I realized that this is almost like a cartoon that I could control. I had never experienced something like this before, and I thought, this is amazing. This is incredible. This is the best thing I've ever seen in my life. And to this day, it is the best thing. And Mario is still the character and the franchise that I enjoy the most. And this is why I have dedicated so much of my time to playing these games and to finding out information about them, so that I can share it with other enthusiasts of Mario.
Okay. And I feel like I might know the answer to this question, since given what you just said, but what was your, to go into specifics about it, what was your favorite game and or games growing up?
Well, I pretty much enjoy every single Mario game, but if I had to choose just among all the Mario games, which ones were my favorite, I would say Super Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario 64. I would also say Super Mario Odyssey, but that's not growing up, really. I mean, it only came out a year ago. So yeah, I would say Super Mario Bros. 3 and Super Mario 64 are the best Mario games in my opinion.
Okay. And I'm realizing just now that I actually didn't put this on the question list, but what would you say is your favorite game and or games now?
Well, yeah, the ones that I already mentioned, and Super Mario Odyssey, so those three together.
Okay. So you answered the next question already, but so so we'll just change it up a bit. So, how did the name Supper Mario Broth come from? Was it did the original owner slash content creator of that website just mess around some words for fun, or does like the title have a meaning of some sort?
Yeah, well, I actually had an article written about this on my Patreon, but yeah, I will recap this very briefly. The original creator wanted the blog to be more humorous than what I am doing with it right now, which is entirely factual. There is no content that is intended to be just for fun on my blog. It's all sourced, it's all verified, and with that kind of aim, with that goal that the original creator had in mind, we just sat together and we came up with a name that sounded funny to both of us, which was Supper Mario Broth. It was supposed to be a pun on Super Mario Brothers, and we decided that, well, the best kind of topic to make a pun on would be food, because of so much food is kind of a recurring theme in Mario games. There is Super Mario World has lots of locations named after food, for example, and so on. And so we thought, okay, well, there's a pun on Super, which is supper, and there's a pun on Brothers, which is broth, and that's how the name came about. And then the icon is just something, well, carrots, they go in soup, they go in broth, and this is the carrot item from Super Mario Land 2. Originally, since Super Mario Land 2 is a Game Boy game, it's monochrome, and I actually went and colored it in, and I've used this icon since, because it's just become the face of the blog. People know me as the icon. Since I never show my face, this is what people know me as.
Okay. So, like on a typical day of acquiring various bits of information for your blog, like how do you go about acquiring it? What's the research that goes into it?
Well, there's many different things that I do. I usually change it up, because um, the last thing I want is to bore my readers, so I could just sit down and, for example, just very deeply research a single game, and then for days at a time just post things about that one game, but that would bore my readers, I think. So I try to change it up. And so one thing I do is, for example, I play games in an emulator, and I use tools that, for example, allow me to do things that I would not be able to do on a console. So, for example, moving the camera around in ways that the console would not support. And that has resulted in hundreds of posts, so very interesting things that can be found by moving the camera around in situations where it's not intended. Another thing that I do is I search for magazines, video game magazines. There's very many scans online available in different places if you know where to look, if you look at all of these obscure sites that upload these magazines. And then I look at every single page of every single issue of those magazines and look for Mario content. And there's lots of it. There's illustrations that people, that the magazines themselves commission. There's reader-submitted illustrations containing Mario and so on. So there's also a lot of content. And obviously, I just follow hundreds and thousands of different Mario content creators. And if I see something interesting that they publish, then I repost it, obviously also sourcing and attributing them. I would never repost something without attribution. And yeah, it's I would say the three main sources of content for me.
Okay. And when looking for content to post, do you feel like there's a particular like type of is like what content of all the content you've posted, what did you find to be like the easiest, to do research and verify the facts on?
Well, there's things that do not need to be verified is, for example, the magazines. I mean, if I have the magazine issue, I don't need to verify anything because I just take the magazine or the scan and that's
Mm-hmm.
it. I just put what issue it's from and that's it. Obviously, the verification process is the hardest for things that other people on the internet discover because there's always a chance that it's some sort of hoax or joke, and especially the more interesting the content seems at first glance, the higher the chance is that it's a joke, because you know people make content that looks interesting in order to get views and likes and so on social media, and a lot of it is not actually real game content but rather some sort of fabrication, and so that's pretty hard to verify. I have hundreds or maybe even thousands of pieces of content on my computer saved that I have not yet been able to verify. I try to do it from time to time, but there are things that if I don't find the source for, I will just never post. I would rather just never post some content that may be interesting rather than just post something that turns out to be false. That's the last thing I want to do.
Okay. And what sort of challenges do you come across when you're going about like a typical day of research in a game?
Well, I would say if I play something on an emulator, it's always hard. Just the controls that are available to me with a keyboard and mouse are just not the same as I would be able to have on a console, and so sometimes it's just hard to play the game the way it's intended to be played with these different controls, and sometimes it's even impossible. I mean, emulating the Wii, for example, there are so many games that require the Wii remote to be moved in different spatially up and down and to the side and so on, that if you, I mean, it's possible for an emulator to emulate every single one of these motions, but then you would have to use a different key or button for all of these, and coordinating this in order to make some sort of complex movement is almost impossible. For example, there are games that require lots of complex movement, like the Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games. There's three of them for the Wii, and it's almost impossible for me to get any content out of these because I cannot play them. I cannot play them in such a way that I get past some of the challenges that lie in the way of unlocking more content, because I cannot control the game well enough to pass them.
Okay. So, in your in your opinion, since before you took over the blog, you were like also a fan of it. Why do you think like the blog of various trivias from the Mario games? What do you think it is about like this particular type of trivia that appeals to people?
Well, I think many blogs exist that compile trivia for video games. What I think makes mine, I don't want to say different from everything else, but I guess different from many other blogs that post trivia, is that most of them are just aggregators of content. They find content from other places. I would say about half of the content that I post is actually discovered by me, myself. And a lot of it is just very obscure in the sense that nobody has bothered to look at these things as deeply as I have. And obviously there's places. There's, for example, the Cutting Room Floor, which is a website, wiki at tcrf.net. Populated with people who look at video games very deeply. They look at the source code and so on. And so that's one of the places where you could find something as deep as the content that I present. I just think that going to a site and then every single day getting content that I would imagine most people who read my blog would be not surprised, but would not be familiar with 80 to 90% of the things that I post. I think that's a different experience that you would get from normal trivia blogs, because if you go to a trivia blog if you are an enthusiast of something, but if you're an enthusiast, you may already know most of the trivia that the blog is going to post. And I think my blog gives people a slightly different experience in that I am actively going about and discovering new content so that people do not get this feeling that they are reading things that they already know.
Okay. And during your time searching and researching various bits of trivia from the Mario games, is there a particular fact or series of facts that you enjoyed, uncovering the most?
Um, well, I mean, there's so much, but I guess I could um, mention a few that stand out the most. One of the discoveries that surprised myself a lot was when I discovered that the mustache bumps on Mario's mustache, he has 6 and Luigi has 2, and that actually corresponds with the amounts of eyelashes that the princesses that are traditionally paired up with these characters, which is Peach and Daisy, have. So Peach has 6 eyelashes on each eye, and Daisy has 2. And this is just something that I think resonated with a lot of people. It has become one of my most popular posts. Another thing was the search for Big Yoshi. You may have seen it. It's artwork of a corpulent Yoshi. It's become quite popular on the internet in the last 2 years, and that Yoshi, well, no truly high definition artwork of that Yoshi existed before I started looking for it, and it's been 2 years of me just discovering progressively more high definition artwork in the most obscure, most unexpected places, like a British self-published magazine with a print run of about 100 copies or something that had one of those high resolution Big Yoshi images in it, and so that was also something that resonated with my readers. People really like Big Yoshi, and they liked the quest for the ever increasing quality of Big Yoshi images. As for just the most surprising content that I've ever seen, it's quite morbid, but one of the Mario Kart arcade games contains an image in its files that it's a real life photo from a news article about a hostage situation in Russia that happened in the 2000s, and there is no reason for it to be there. Why would something like that even be anywhere near a Mario game? It's very mysterious. I've never been able to find a reason for this, but it just when I first discovered it, I could almost not believe that something like that would exist in a Mario game. So yeah, I think those are the most impactful ones that I can remember off the top of my head.
Okay, and final question. Broth, in your opinion as a gamer and a game researcher, is
Mhm.
video games?
It sure is.
And there you go. And with that, this particular episode of the Pumpkin Copter Cast has come to a close. I would like to thank Supper Mario Broth for joining me today and providing insight as to how his content creation works.
Yes, thank you. Thanks for having me.
And yeah, if any of the -7 people listening to this enjoyed it, feel free to, like and subscribe on the rare times I post anything worth listening to. You can follow me on the Twitters at Tigorman83 and Broth. Before we sign off, is there anything of yours that you wish to plug?
Well, I mean, I think I've mentioned the website. If you go to suppermariobroth.com, you'll see both the main content and also links to all the other sites that they have. So that's it.
Okay. And this has been another episode of the Pumpkin Copter Cast. I hope you all enjoyed, and we'll see you all next time.